tell me a little bit about this EMS training and what got y'all interested in it.
So we started off our school with our EMT program. Usually you just go ahead and start with the books and get into the normal curriculum of medical schools in our first blocks. But we went ahead and started with EMT first and went ahead and started getting our clinical experience, which I think was very valuable in our learning for sure.
Why do you think it's so valuable?
I think it's valuable because everyone comes from different backgrounds, and some people got a lot of clinical experience prior to medical school, whereas others did not. And this kind of gives us all that level ground to where we get to be hands-on with patients, see what real clinical experience is like, and kind of have a jump start for the beginning of our careers.
And how do you think this will benefit you once you're done with med school?
I think just having that early exposure is really important because, like she said, a lot of medical students kind of start out, they do their 2 first years where it's just a lot of like book learning and memorizing things and taking tests, which is still really important. We do still have to memorize all the things and take tests. But I think like it's really important to just as soon as you can start getting that like patient contact, like just learning how to communicate with people, how to interact with patients, just being comfortable in that setting so that you can actually like put that knowledge, like apply that knowledge in a real setting.
And how are y'all able to balance this course on top of all your regular learning?
So we did the actual course before we started our other courses. It was about a month long. It was like 8 to 5 for 4 weeks. And so we did all of kind of like the learning and the test taking and the training all in one block before we started our other blocks, which was really helpful. And then we do also do ambulance and hospital shifts as well. And we had to get a certain amount of hours for that. And so some people kind of stacked it all in the beginning and just did it every weekend for the first month, and then some people have been spreading it out because we need to have all of the hours completed by November. So I think with some of the ambulance shifts, it's a little tricky to kind of like, okay, I have, one day this week that's like free, but I got to do an EMT shift, and it's a little bit tricky to balance it time-wise, but I think the school did a good job of kind of like, we sort of did that first, and then we transitioned to our other classes.
And how would you recommend this to other students, / would you recommend this to other students?
I would definitely recommend it to students, and I feel like it may seem intimidating at first because you're like, I'm already going to med school, like becoming a student for EMT seems like a lot, but I will say it's very well integrated, and the things that you're learning you'll see consistently. So like for example, right now we'll be learning, and then a certain topic will be brought up and we're like, oh, like we learned that in EMT or whatever, and so it's constantly getting reintroduced, and so it's not like you're doing a completely separate course.
Yeah, I agree with that because so one of the first things you learn as an EMT is like CPR, basic life support, that kind of stuff, and then like we went back and dove deeper into that and during our courses because we did cardiac, pulmonary, and kidneys. That's kind of what we're doing right now in our course, and like a lot of like EKG stuff, which is like kind of cool because we saw some EKGs back during EMT, didn't really know how to read them, but like we just kind of saw, okay, this is when you get an EKG and that kind of stuff, and now we're actually like, oh, this is how you read an EKG, this is what this means. So there is like a lot of overlap and a lot of integration, and just kind of seeing that stuff again, but it's really cool to be like, oh, I already saw this like in real life, and now I'm just kind of like learning the background of like, oh, this is like what all that meant, because I do remember like we gave nitroglycerin, oh, here's why we give nitroglycerin, like that kind of stuff.
So you're actually using like what you've applied here, you can also apply in your courses.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Overall, what has been your favorite part about taking the EMT course in conjunction with med school?
Probably my favorite part, other than riding on the ambulance. I mean, that's definitely interesting and fun at times. And but one of my favorite things was being taught by paramedics that are actively working. We had several groups of paramedics come in and EMTs to teach us hands-on learning at our school, and I really appreciated their time, and they gave us a lot of insight before we actually got on the truck, so we would know what to expect.
Yeah, I think mine is I'm not really from East Texas, and so I think it was really, really cool to get some experience just in the community, seeing, you know, like there are like a lot of people who live really far from the hospital. Like we would sometimes be in the ambulance with a patient for like 35, 40 minutes just to get to a hospital. And just seeing like the realities of that, because I am very interested in like rural medicine and a lot of that kind of stuff, and yeah, just kind of seeing the realities of the community that we're going to be serving for the next few years was really cool to just see that right off the bat. And I feel like that makes me like more motivated to do better in school and learn like all that I can to serve the community, and also just kind of makes me aware of like what is needed and like what I can do to help, because instead of just being like, okay, I just live here, but like I don't really know, you know, the needs of like the patient population, and there's obviously so much more to learn, but just that little introduction was really great to have in the beginning.